My fingertips traced the delicate beadwork along the bodice, each crystal catching the afternoon light streaming through Luca's boutique windows. The dress hung before me like a prayer answered. Ivory silk cascading in perfect waves, the hand-sewn pearls creating constellations across the fabric. This wasn't just a wedding dress. This was 6 months of collaboration, countless late-night texts with sketches attached, and every saved dollar from my styling work poured into something that would mark the beginning of my new life. "Isabella, mia cara, you must try it once more," Luca insisted, his hands gesturing dramatically, as only he could manage. His Italian accent thickened with emotion, a sure sign he was proud of his work. "The hemline, she needs to kiss the floor just so." Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from, and if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed because tomorrow I've saved something extra special for you. I stepped into the gown carefully, feeling the silk settle against my skin like water. The mirror reflected someone I barely recognized, not the quiet, accommodating Isabella who cleaned up everyone else's messes, but a woman radiant with anticipation. The dress transformed me, or perhaps it simply revealed who I'd always been underneath. Luca circled me like a sculptor examining his masterpiece, tugging here, smoothing there. "Perfetto," he breathed finally, pressing his palms together. "You know, this dress will be the star of my spring collection show. The fashion press, they will weep when they see what we have created together." The gown had been born from our shared vision, my understanding of what made a woman feel powerful, his technical genius with fabric and form. We'd spent hours discussing the emotional weight of a wedding dress, how it needed to feel like armor and poetry simultaneously. The result was something neither of us could have achieved alone, a collaboration that spoke to everything I loved about fashion. "Luca, you've outdone yourself," I said, meeting his eyes in the mirror. "I still can't believe this is mine." He waved dismissively, but I caught his pleased smile. "You gave me the soul of this dress, Isabella. I merely gave it breath." His expression grew serious. "Promise me you will wear it with pride. No shrinking, no apologizing for taking up space. This dress demands presence." I laughed, thinking of all the times I'd made myself smaller to avoid conflict, particularly with Sophia. "I promise. Besides, it's not like anyone could miss me in this." The drive home felt ceremonial as I carefully transported the garment bag in my back seat, checking the rearview mirror obsessively to ensure it remained pristine. My phone buzzed with a text from Ethan. "Dinner at 7? I want to hear about the dress fitting." At home, I hung the dress in our bedroom closet with the reverence reserved for religious artifacts. The weight of it felt substantial, meaningful. In 3 weeks, I would walk down the aisle wearing this creation, stepping into marriage as the truest version of myself. Ethan arrived with takeout from our favorite Thai place, his warm brown eyes lighting up when he saw my expression. "Will the fitting go well?" "Better than well," I said, pulling him toward the closet. "Look!" His sharp intake of breath was everything I'd hoped for. "Isabella," he said softly, "you're going to be the most beautiful bride Chicago has ever seen." As we ate dinner, my phone buzzed with notifications. Sophia had tagged me in an Instagram story about tomorrow's charity gala at the Palmer House. The text overlay read, "Little sister, watch me own this event tomorrow night. Some people are just born for the spotlight." I rolled my eyes, showing the screen to Ethan. "She never changes." "At least she's predictable," he said diplomatically. Ethan had mastered the art of not criticizing my family directly while making his feelings perfectly clear through tone. That night, as I lay in bed, I could see the dress hanging in the closet through the partially open door. The moonlight caught the beadwork, making it shimmer like stars against the dark fabric. In 3 weeks, everything would change. I would become Mrs. Isabella Ramirez, step into a life where I was seen and valued, where my opinions mattered and my creativity was celebrated rather than overlooked. I drifted off to sleep thinking about the wedding, about Luca's fashion show, about all the beautiful possibilities stretching ahead. The dress hung there like a guardian, protecting my dreams. If I had known then what Sophia was planning, I would have locked the closet door and hidden the key. The scream that tore from my throat echoed through our apartment at 7:43 a.m., bouncing off the walls like a wounded animal. The closet door hung open, revealing an empty space where my dress should have been. The custom padded hanger swayed slightly, mocking me with its vacancy. "Isabella!" My voice cracked as I called for him, my hands frantically pushing through every garment in the closet, as if the dress might be hiding behind my work blazers or underneath my winter coats. "Ethan!"
It's gone. The words felt foreign in my mouth. The dress. My wedding dress. It's gone. Foam dripped from his toothbrush as he stared at the empty space. Gone how? Dresses don't just disappear, Isabella. I was already on my hands and knees, checking under the bed, behind furniture, anywhere a gown might somehow materialize. The rational part of my brain knew this was pointless. A dress that size couldn't hide anywhere in our modest apartment, but panic had overridden logic entirely. "Maybe you moved it?" Ethan suggested gently, though his expression suggested he didn't believe his own words. "For safekeeping." "I would remember moving my wedding dress," I snapped, then immediately softened. This wasn't his fault. "I'm sorry. Someone was in our apartment. Someone took it." But even as I said it, a terrible suspicion was crystallizing in my chest. The spare key I'd given Sophia last month when she was cat-sitting, her comment about owning the charity gala, the way she looked at photos of my dress fittings, her eyes lingering just a moment too long on the gown's details. My phone buzzed. Instagram notification. My blood turned to ice water. Sophia's story showed her in a mirror, the camera angled to capture her profile as she applied lipstick. In the background, barely visible but unmistakable, hung my dress. My dress, in her apartment. That bitch! The word slipped out before I could stop it, foreign on my tongue. I never cursed, never spoke ill of family, but the betrayal was so complete it demanded profanity. I called her immediately, straight to voicemail. Called again. Same result. Again, each unanswered ring feeling like another twist of the knife. By noon, the evidence was everywhere. Sophia's Instagram stories chronicled her preparation for the gala like a fashion documentary. The professional hair and makeup team, the jewelry selection, and finally, at 2 p.m., the reveal shot, my dress, on her body, in her bedroom mirror. The caption read, "Sometimes the perfect dress finds you. Tonight, I made magic happen. #CharityGala. #bespoke fashion. #born for this." The comment section was a chorus of praise. "Stunning! You look like a goddess. Where did you get this masterpiece?" My phone rang, Luca's name flashing on the screen. "Isabella, what the hell is happening? Fashion blogs are calling me asking about Sophia Cruz being my new muse. They're saying she's wearing my design to the Palmer House gala tonight." I couldn't find words. How do you explain that your sister stole your wedding dress and was now parading around in it like some kind of deranged fashion show? "She took it," I whispered finally. "She took my dress." The silence that followed was deafening. "She what?" Luca's voice could have shattered glass. "That dress was designed for you. Every measurement, every bead placement, every stitch was for your body, your wedding, your moment." "I know." "She cannot do this. This is theft. This is vandalism of art." Through my fog of shock, I heard the deeper implications in his voice. This wasn't just about my dress anymore. Luca's career was on the line. Fashion blogs were already running stories about Sophia as his mystery muse. His reputation was being tied to my sister's lie. "We have to stop this," he continued, his accent thickening with emotion. "She cannot steal your moment and destroy my work in the process." But what could we do? The gala was in 6 hours. Sophia had already posted photos that were gaining thousands of likes. The fashion world was watching. I sat in the dark of my apartment, staring at my phone as Sophia's Instagram story view count climbed into the tens of thousands. Each view felt like another person witnessing my humiliation, another voice that would remember Sophia as the woman who wore that incredible dress. At 7 p.m., the professional photos began appearing. Sophia on the red carpet, radiant in my gown, photographers capturing every angle. Fashion reporters interviewed her about her bold style choice and collaboration with rising designer Luca. In one particular shot, she was laughing, her head thrown back in apparent joy, the camera catching the perfect fall of the dress's train. She looked beautiful. She looked like she belonged in that dress, like it had been made for her all along. That's when I truly understood the depth of what she'd done. This wasn't just theft, it was erased. With every photo, every compliment, every media mention, she was rewriting the story of my dress. Tomorrow, when people Googled Luca's work, they'd see her face. When fashion historians looked back at this gown, they'd remember her name.
She'd stolen more than fabric and beading. She'd stolen my place in history. At 11:47 p.m., she posted one final image, a selfie in the dress, taken in what looked like a hotel bathroom. The caption that made my stomach lurch read, "Some things are just meant for me. Thanks for an unforgettable night." I screenshotted everything. The Cruz family home still smelled like my childhood. Coffee, vanilla candles, and the faint trace of my mother's gardenia perfume. Under normal circumstances, walking through the front door on a Sunday morning would have meant comfort, safety, the promise of pancakes and family gossip. Today, it felt like entering a courtroom where I already knew the verdict. My parents were at the kitchen table, the Chicago Tribune spread between them, their phones displaying various social media feeds. They'd seen the photos. Everyone had seen the photos. "Isabella, mija," my mother said without looking up, her voice carrying that particular tone she used when she wanted to avoid confrontation. "We need to talk." "Yes, we do." I remained standing, my purse clutched tightly against my chest like armor. Sophia stole my wedding dress. My father finally looked up from his tablet, his reading glasses perched on his nose in a way that suggested he was about to deliver a lecture. "That's a very serious accusation." "It's not an accusation, it's a fact." I pulled out my phone, scrolling to the screenshots I'd taken the night before. Here she is, in my dress. The dress I designed with Luca, the dress I paid for, the dress that was hanging in my closet 3 days ago. My mother sighed deeply, as if my distress was an inconvenience she hadn't planned for. "Sweetheart, maybe there was a misunderstanding. Maybe Sophia thought..." "Thought what?" I interrupted, something I'd never done before in this house. "Thought she could walk into my apartment and take whatever she wanted? Thought my wedding dress was community property?" "Don't raise your voice," my father said automatically, the same phrase that had silenced me throughout childhood. But something was different now. The deference that usually made me shrink back felt foreign, inadequate for the magnitude of this betrayal. "No," I said simply, "I won't be quiet on this." My parents exchanged one of their wordless communications, the kind married couples develop after decades together. I could read it clearly. How do we handle Isabella when she's being difficult? "Look," my father continued, removing his glasses to clean them, his signature move when he wanted to appear reasonable. "Sophia called this morning. She said you two had discussed sharing the dress for the gala, that you'd given her permission." The lie hit me like a physical blow. That never happened. She seemed very certain, because she's lying. The words exploded out of me. She stole my key, entered my apartment without permission, took my wedding dress, and is now lying about it to cover her tracks. My mother flinched. "Isabella, that's your sister you're talking about." "Yes, it is. The same sister who's been taking things from me my entire life. The same sister you always excuse because she's creative or spirited or just being Sophia." "That's enough," my father said sharply. "Family loyalty. Where was family loyalty when she was stealing from me? Where was family loyalty when she decided my wedding didn't matter as much as her photo opportunity?" The kitchen fell silent except for the tick of the wall clock and the distant hum of the refrigerator. I looked at my parents, really looked at them, and saw something I'd never allowed myself to acknowledge before. They weren't going to help me. They were going to do what they'd always done, minimize my pain to preserve Sophia's image. She probably didn't realize how much it meant to you. You know how she is with fashion. She gets excited and maybe doesn't think things through. Don't think things through? I repeated. She hired professional photographers. She gave interviews about her collaboration with Luca. This wasn't impulse, Mom. This was calculated. My father leaned forward, assuming his mediator pose. The important thing is that the dress wasn't damaged. I'm sure if you talk to her calmly... Calmly? The word came out as a laugh, sharp and bitter. My wedding is in 3 weeks. My dress, the dress I saved for months to afford, the dress I designed specifically for the most important day of my life, was stolen and worn by someone else. It's all over social media. Fashion blogs are calling it her dress. And you want me to be calm? This kind of drama isn't good for anyone, my mother said, reaching for my hand. I pulled back instinctively. Maybe you could order another dress, something simpler.
I'm getting married in 3 weeks, I said quietly, my voice steady despite the rage burning in my chest. In 3 weeks, I'm supposed to walk down the aisle in the dress I designed, wearing something that represents everything I've worked for, everything I've dreamed about. And your solution is for me to settle for something simpler because Sophia decided she wanted what was mine? It's just a dress, my father said, and those 4 words shattered something fundamental inside me. Just a dress. The dress that had taken 6 months to design, the dress that represented my partnership with Luca, my creative vision made manifest, the dress that was supposed to mark my transformation from invisible daughter to radiant bride. Just a dress. I stood up, my purse still clutched against my chest like a shield. I need to go. Isabella, don't leave like this, my mother called as I headed toward the front door. We're family. Families work things out. I turned back to look at them one last time, my parents, sitting at their kitchen table, surrounded by evidence of their daughter's betrayal, still finding ways to excuse the inexcusable. Some families do. This one just protects its favorite. Preparing and narrating this story took us a lot of time, so if you are enjoying it, subscribe to our channel. It means a lot to us. Now, back to the story. The front door closed behind me with a soft click that felt like the end of something important. Outside, Ethan was waiting in the car, his expression unreadable behind his sunglasses. "How did it go?" he asked as I slid into the passenger seat. Exactly as expected. I buckled my seatbelt with mechanical precision. They want me to let it go. They think I should just buy another dress. Ethan was quiet for a long moment, his hands gripping the steering wheel. When he finally spoke, his voice was carefully controlled. "What do you want to do?" I looked out the window at the house where I had grown up, where I'd learned to make myself small, where I'd been taught that keeping peace was more important than seeking justice. Through the kitchen window, I could see my parents still sitting at the table, probably already strategizing how to convince me to be the bigger person. Some families do. This one just protects its favorite. The manila folder grew thicker with each piece of evidence I discovered, like building a case file for my own heartbreak. Spread across Ethan's dining room table were months of digital breadcrumbs that told the true story of my dress. Emails with Luca discussing design modifications, bank statements showing payment installments, sketches with my handwriting in the margins, even the original Pinterest board I'd created for inspiration. My laptop hummed as I scrolled through archived conversations, each timestamp proving what my family refused to acknowledge. This dress had been mine from conception to creation. Every detail, from the pearl placement to the silk weight, had been chosen specifically for my body, my vision, my wedding day. "Look at this," I said to Ethan, pointing to an email dated 4 months earlier. Luca asked me about the neckline depth because he wanted to make sure it would photograph beautifully with my grandmother's pearl necklace. He leaned over my shoulder, reading the screen.
And here's the invoice with your name and address, he added, highlighting another document. There's no ambiguity here, Isabella. This is theft, plain and simple. The doorbell interrupted our documentation session. Luca stood on the doorstep, his usually immaculate appearance slightly disheveled, clutching a leather portfolio and wearing an expression of barely contained fury. Isabella, cara mia, we must talk. He swept into the apartment like a small tornado, setting his portfolio on the coffee table with deliberate precision. The fashion blogs, they are eating this story alive. Mystery muse Sophia Cruz stuns in Valente Original. They are calling for interviews with her about our collaboration. I winced. Luca, I'm so sorry. I never wanted your work to get caught up in this. No. He waved his hands dismissively. This is not what you're doing. Your sister, she called my studio this morning. You want to know what she said? I wasn't sure I did, but I nodded anyway. She said the dress was a surprise gift for her sister, you, but that you had given her permission to preview it at the gala. She said you were too busy with wedding planning to attend yourself. He practically spat the words. She made it sound like she was doing you a favor by modeling the gown.
The audacity took my breath away. Even in her lies, Sophia had managed to paint herself as the generous sister helping out poor, overwhelmed Isabella. There's more, Luca continued, opening his portfolio. She wants to commission 3 more pieces for upcoming events. She offered to pay double my usual rate if I would consider her my primary muse for the spring collection. Ethan whistled low. She's trying to buy you. She is trying to erase Isabella from the narrative entirely, Luca corrected. But she does not understand something very important about artists. We do not forget our true collaborators. He pulled out a thick folder of his own, spreading documents across the table alongside mine. Original sketches with my measurements noted in his precise handwriting. Photos from our design sessions showing me in various mock-ups. Email threads discussing everything from fabric choices to emotional inspiration. You see this? He pointed to a sketch dated 6 months earlier. This is the moment you described how you wanted to feel walking down the aisle, like poetry in motion, you said. And here, he indicated another drawing, this is when you told me about your grandmother's vintage earrings and how the neckline should complement them. The memory hit me with unexpected force. Those afternoons in Luca's studio had been more than fittings. They'd been conversations about love, about transformation, about the power of clothing to make us feel like our truest selves. Sophia might be wearing the dress, but she could never understand its soul. What do we do with all this? I asked, gesturing to the evidence spread before us. Luca's smile was sharp, predatory. We tell the truth, publicly, dramatically, in a way that no one can ignore or dismiss. He pulled out his phone, scrolling to a saved webpage. My spring collection show is in 2 weeks. The fashion press will be there, influencers, buyers, everyone who matters in this industry. It is already generating buzz because of your dress. Because of Sophia wearing my dress, I corrected bitterly. Exactly. His eyes gleamed, which makes it the perfect stage for setting the record straight. Imagine their surprise when the real Isabella Cruz walks that runway, wearing an even more stunning version of the gown everyone thinks belongs to your sister. My heart stopped. An even more stunning version? I've been working on it since yesterday, he admitted. The same design, but elevated. More intricate beadwork, a longer train, details that will make the original look like a rough draft. This version will be worthy of the moment when you reclaim your narrative. The implications hit me like a wave. A public revelation at a fashion show attended by press and industry insiders? Social media exploding with the real story? Sophia's lies exposed in the most humiliating way possible. But what if no one believes us? I asked, voicing my deepest fear. What if they think we're just trying to create drama for publicity? Luca gestured to the mountain of evidence on the table. With this documentation? Impossible. We have timestamps, measurements, payment records, design evolution photos. We have enough proof to convince a jury, let alone fashion reporters. Ethan had been quietly listening, but now he leaned forward. Isabella, you don't have to do this. We could handle this privately, through lawyers if necessary.
Private solutions haven't worked, I said, thinking of my parents' dismissal of Sophia's casual lies. She made this public when she wore my dress to that gala. She involved the fashion world when she gave those interviews. Maybe it's time I stopped trying to handle family drama behind closed doors. The room fell silent except for the sound of pages rustling as we organized the evidence. I looked at the photos of myself during the design process, radiant, excited, completely trusting that my most precious creation would be safe. That woman felt like a stranger now, someone naive enough to believe family loyalty meant something. "There's one more thing," Luca said quietly. "Your sister called this afternoon while I was working on the new dress. She wanted to schedule another fitting to discuss adjustments to the original gown." "Adjustments?" The word came out strangled. "She wants it shortened for a cocktail party next month. She said since you probably won't need it now anyway, she might as well get some use out of it." The casual cruelty of it hit me like a physical blow. Not only had Sophia stolen my dress, she was planning to destroy it, to cut it down into something ordinary for her own entertainment. That's when I knew. This wasn't just about reclaiming my dress anymore. This was about reclaiming myself from a lifetime of being diminished, dismissed, and erased by the people who should have protected me most. "Set up the show," I said to Luca, my voice steady for the first time in days. "Let's give them a finale they'll never forget."
Sophia's apartment building screamed expensive minimalism, all glass and steel reaching toward the Chicago sky like a monument to successful self-absorption. The doorman knew me by now from years of sisterly visits, but his smile seemed strained as he announced my arrival. Perhaps he'd seen the fashion blogs too. The elevator ride to the 32nd floor felt interminable, my reflection multiplied in the polished steel walls until I looked like an army of wronged women ascending toward justice. I hadn't called ahead. Surprise visits were against Sophia's carefully orchestrated lifestyle, but normal etiquette had died the moment she entered my apartment with criminal intent. She answered the door in silk pajamas at 2 p.m., her hair perfectly tousled in that way that required professional styling. "Isabella! What a surprise!" Her voice carried that particular tone she used when caught off guard, bright but brittle, like sponge sugar about to shatter. "We need to talk." "Of course, come in." She stepped aside with exaggerated graciousness, gesturing toward her pristine living room. Every surface was magazine-ready, from the artfully arranged coffee table books to the fresh orchids that someone else definitely maintained. "I was just about to call you, actually." The lie came so easily I almost admired the technique. Almost. I remained standing while she settled onto her white leather sofa, crossing her legs with practiced elegance. The gesture reminded me of our childhood, Sophia holding court while I waited for permission to speak. "I want my dress back." Her laugh was like wind chimes in a hurricane, delicate and completely inappropriate for the storm. "Your dress? Oh, Isabella, you're being so dramatic." I explained everything to Mom and Dad. "Explain what? How did you steal my wedding dress and wore it to a public event?" "Stole?" She pressed her hand to her chest in mock offense. "I would never steal from you. I thought you'd given me permission. The whole thing was obviously a misunderstanding." I pulled out my phone, scrolling to the Instagram stories I'd screenshotted. These photos suggest it was anything but a misunderstanding. Professional photographers, red carpet interviews, fashion blog features. That's not how misunderstandings work, Sophia. Her expression shifted almost imperceptibly, the mask of innocent confusion slipping to reveal something harder underneath. "You're upset. I understand that. But maybe this is actually a good thing." "A good thing?" The words came out as a whisper, because anything louder might have emerged as a scream. "Think about it," she continued, warming to her theme, as she always did when spinning a narrative. "How many people saw that dress because I wore it? How many fashion influencers are now following your designer friend? I made your little project famous, Isabella. You should be thanking me." The casual dismissal of months of work, of artistic collaboration, of personal meaning, it was breathtaking in its cruelty. "My little project?" I don't mean it to sound dismissive, though her tone suggested otherwise. It's just that you've always been more behind the scenes, more comfortable in the background. I'm better at handling the spotlight. There it was, the philosophy that had governed our entire relationship, condensed into one poisonous sentence. I created it and she performed. I worked, she took credit. I dreamed, she made them hers. That dress was designed for my wedding, Sophia, my wedding, which is in 2 weeks. And you'll look beautiful in whatever you choose, she said airily. You're so creative. I'm sure you'll find something even better. Maybe something more you. The implication hung between us like a blade. Something more me. Smaller, quieter, less attention-grabbing. Something that wouldn't upstage the real star of any family event. I felt something fundamental shift inside me, like tectonic plates realigning after years of pressure. I want the dress back, today. Her laugh died abruptly. That's not possible. Why not? It's being cleaned. Special fabric, you know how it is. Another lie, delivered with the confidence of someone who'd never faced consequences for dishonesty. Fine. When will it be ready? I'm not sure. These things take time. Besides, she paused, studying her manicure with affected casualness. I've been thinking about having it altered. The length is all wrong for my height, and there are some stylistic choices that could be improved. The words hit me like physical blows. She wanted to cut up my dress, to reshape it according to her preferences, to erase even the physical evidence of my vision. You can't alter my wedding dress.
Can't I? Her smile was sharp now, predatory. I mean, technically, it's in my possession. And let's be honest, Isabella, when have you ever really stood up for yourself? When have you ever fought for anything you wanted? The question hung in the air like a challenge, and I realized she was right. I'd spent 30 years accommodating, compromising, stepping aside. When she'd taken my favorite sweater in high school, I'd bought a replacement. When she'd flirted with my college boyfriend, I'd convinced myself I was overreacting. When she'd claimed credit for the surprise party I'd planned for our father's 60th birthday, I'd stayed quiet to avoid family drama. But this was different. This wasn't a sweater or a boyfriend or even a party. This was my wedding dress, the culmination of everything I'd worked for, the symbol of the life I was building with Ethan. You're right, I said quietly. I've never fought for anything. But you made one crucial mistake, Sophia. What's that? You took the wrong thing from the wrong person at the wrong time. I headed toward the door, my hand on the handle before I turned back. I'm getting married in 2 weeks, and I'm wearing that dress. The only question is whether you return it voluntarily or whether I take it back publicly. Her confident mask slipped entirely. What's that supposed to mean? You'll find out. The elevator doors closed on her confused expression, and for the first time since this nightmare began, I felt a spark of something I'd never experienced in relation to my sister. Power. She'd underestimated me, assumed I'd roll over as I always had. But she'd crossed a line that couldn't be uncrossed, violated something sacred. My phone buzzed as I reached the lobby. A text from Luca. Cara, how did it go with your sister? I typed back quickly. She's keeping the dress. She wants to alter it. His response was immediate. Then we proceed with the plan. The show must go on. Outside Sophia's building, I stood on the sidewalk and looked up at her floor, imagining her pacing in her perfect apartment, finally realizing that quiet Isabella might not stay quiet after all. The autumn wind whipped around the buildings, and I pulled my coat tighter, thinking about Luca's fashion show, about the new dress he was creating, and about the moment when the truth would finally emerge from the shadows where I'd hidden it for too long. 2 weeks, 14 days to prepare for the most important confrontation of my life, 14 days to find the courage I'd never needed before, 14 days to become the woman who would walk down that runway and reclaim everything that had always been mine. Luca's studio had been transformed into mission control,
every surface covered with fabric swatches, design sketches, and meticulously organized evidence folders. The new dress hung in the center of the space like a beacon, each crystal and pearl catching the afternoon light streaming through the tall windows. If the original gown had been poetry, this was an epic, grander, more intricate, undeniably breathtaking. "Isabella, you must see the train," Luca called from across the room, his hands fluttering over yards of silk that seemed to flow like water. "I have added 3 additional feet with hand-sewn pearls that create a constellation pattern. When you walk, it will be like trailing stars behind you." I approached the dress with reverence, running my fingers along beadwork so detailed it seemed impossible that human hands had created it. "Luca, this is incredible, but what if—" "No." He cut me off with characteristic Italian firmness. "No doubts, no what-ifs. This dress is your armor, your declaration of war. When you wear it, the world will see not just a bride, but an artist claiming her rightful place." Ethan looked up from his laptop, where he'd been coordinating with fashion bloggers and influencers. His legal training had proven invaluable in organizing our evidence and crafting our narrative strategy. "The guest list for the show is impressive. Vogue will be there, plus representatives from Harper's Bazaar, Elle, and at least 15 major fashion influencers. Any word on whether Sophia plans to attend?" I asked, though part of me already knew the answer. According to her Instagram stories, she's, quote, "absolutely thrilled to support rising talent." Ethan read from his phone, his tone dry. "She posted about it this morning with the caption, 'Supporting my favorite designer's debut show. Can't wait to see what magic we've created together.'" The audacity was staggering. Even now, she was positioning herself as Luca's collaborator, as if she'd been involved in his artistic vision from the beginning. The fashion world's obsession with narrative meant that whoever told the story first often got to control how it was remembered. "Perfect," Luca said, his smile sharp as a blade. "Let her come. Let her sit in the front row and watch as her lies unravel in real time." My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. "Heard you're planning something dramatic for the Valenti show. Don't embarrass yourself more than you already have. Some battles aren't worth fighting. S."
The message confirmed what I'd suspected. Sophia had heard about the show through fashion industry gossip. Her attempt at intimidation felt desperate, unlike her usual confident manipulation. I showed the text to Luca and Ethan. "She's scared." "Good," Ethan said firmly. "She should be. We have bank records, design sketches, email trails, measurement records, and witness testimony. This isn't speculation or family drama, it's documentation." Luca pulled out a thick binder, its contents meticulously organized with colored tabs and protective sleeves. "I have prepared everything the press will need. Original sketches with timestamps, photos from our design sessions, the commission agreement with your signature, even the fabric receipts showing the specific materials chosen for your body measurements." He opened a page showing side-by-side photos, me during a fitting session 3 months ago, and Sophia at the charity gala. The difference was obvious even to an untrained eye. The dress hung differently on Sophia's frame, the proportions slightly off because it had been designed for my shorter torso and longer legs. "The technical analysis alone proves the dress was created for you," Luca continued. "But this is about more than proving ownership. This is about showing the fashion world what happens when art is stolen and truth is manipulated." We spent the afternoon rehearsing the reveal. Luca had scheduled me as the finale look, the moment when his entire collection would culminate. The plan was elegant in its simplicity. I would walk the runway wearing the new dress while screens around the venue displayed the evidence of my ownership. The fashion press would witness the truth in real time with documentation they could verify immediately. "Remember," Luca coached as we practiced my walk, "this is not about revenge. This is about reclamation. You are not attacking your sister. You are claiming what was always yours." The distinction felt important. I'd never wanted to hurt Sophia, only to stop her from hurting me.
The difference was crucial for my own sense of integrity and for how the story would be received by the press. My mother called as we were finishing the rehearsal. I almost didn't answer, but Ethan encouraged me to maintain family contact despite everything. Isabella, mija, your father and I have been talking. We think maybe you should reconsider this fashion show idea. How did you know about the fashion show? Sophia mentioned it. She is concerned that you're going to make a scene that will embarrass the whole family. Of course she was concerned. Mom, Sophia stole my wedding dress. She lied about it publicly. She's refusing to return it and wants to alter it for her own use. How is seeking justice embarrassing to anyone except her? It's just that these public confrontations never end well. Maybe you could work something out privately. Buy another dress. Sophia said she'd be willing to help pay for a replacement. The offer was insulting on multiple levels. Sophia would graciously help replace what she'd stolen, as if my dress was just another commodity that could be swapped out, as if months of artistic collaboration could be purchased at a department store. I don't want a replacement, Mom. I want my dress. The dress I designed, paid for, and never gave anyone permission to touch. But think about the headlines, Isabella. Sister fights over wedding dress. Is that really how you want to be remembered? I looked around Luca's studio, at the evidence of my creative partnership with him, at the new dress that represented my refusal to accept diminishment, at Ethan working tirelessly to support my fight for justice. I'd rather be remembered as the woman who stood up for herself than the one who stayed silent while her life was stolen, I said finally. After hanging up, I felt the weight of what we were planning. In less than a week, I would walk down a runway in front of the fashion world's most influential voices and expose my sisters' lives in the most public way possible. There would be no taking it back, no private family reconciliation afterward. Having second thoughts? Ethan asked gently. I looked at the new dress, at the evidence binders, at Luca's determined expression. No, for the first time in my life, I'm having first thoughts, real thoughts about what I deserve and what I'm willing to fight for. Luca clapped his hands together. Bene, then we prepare for battle. But first, he gestured towards the dress, you must try on your armor one more time. A general must know her weapons. As I stepped into the gown for what felt like a dress rehearsal for my own renaissance, I thought about Isabella, who had hung her wedding dress in the closet just a week ago. That woman had been trusting, accommodating, willing to make herself smaller to keep peace. This woman, the one staring back at me from Luca's mirror, was ready for war.
The fashion show was in 6 days. Sophia had no idea what was coming. The warehouse venue buzzed with the particular energy that preceded fashion greatness. Models in various stages of undress, stylists wielding hairspray like weapons, and photographers adjusting lighting with the intensity of surgeons. The transformed space gleamed under strategically placed spotlights, the runway cutting through the center like a sword through silk. This was Luca's moment, his career-defining show, and I was about to make it mine as well. From my position backstage, I could see the audience filing into their seats through a gap in the curtains. Fashion editors clutched their phones, ready to live tweet history. Influencers posed for content, their ring lights casting otherworldly glows across the venue. The front row glittered with industry royalty, buyers from Bergdorf Goodman, critics from major publications, and socialites whose approval could make or break a designer's career. And there, settling into her front row seat like a queen claiming her throne, was Sophia. She wore a black cocktail dress that probably cost more than most people's rent. Her hair swept into an elegant chignon, diamonds catching the light at her throat. She looked every inch the fashion insider, the kind of woman who belonged in these rarefied spaces. Several photographers turned their lenses toward her, and she smiled with practiced grace, no doubt anticipating another round of publicity. Mia cara,
"You look like a goddess of vengeance," Luca whispered as he approached, his eyes taking in my appearance with professional assessment. The new dress fit like liquid starlight, every crystal perfectly placed, every seam precisely tailored. The cathedral train stretched behind me like a river of silk and dreams, each hand-sewn pearl catching the backstage lighting. "I feel like one," I admitted, surprised by the steadiness of my own voice. The nerves I'd expected were nowhere to be found. Instead, I felt a crystalline clarity, as if everything in my life had led to this moment. The show began with Luca's signature dramatic flair. Models glided down the runway in his spring collection, flowing fabrics and jewel tones, architectural silhouettes that transformed the human form into living art. Each look built upon the last, creating a narrative of feminine power and elegant rebellion. The audience was captivated, their phones capturing every detail for immediate sharing across social media platforms. I watched from the wings as each model returned, their faces flushed with the adrenaline of performance. The energy in the venue was electric, that special alchemy that occurred when artistic vision met a receptive audience. This was why Luca had fought so hard for this moment, why the dress theft had wounded him as deeply as it had wounded me. "Look, two more, then you," the stage manager whispered, his headset crackling with communications from the production team. Through the curtain gap, I saw Sophia leaning forward in her seat, clearly enjoying the show, but also scanning each look with the calculating gaze of someone expecting to see her influence reflected in the designs. Several times, she turned to the person beside her, a fashion blogger whose byline I recognized, and made animated comments, no doubt positioning herself as an industry insider with special knowledge of the designer's inspiration. The irony was perfect. She'd come to witness what she believed was her triumph, her successful theft being celebrated on the runway. Instead, she was about to watch her lies unravel in the most public way possible. "One more look," the stage manager announced. My heart rate remained steady, that strange calm continuing to envelop me like armor. Behind me, assistants made final adjustments to the train, ensuring it would flow perfectly as I walked. Luca appeared at my shoulder, his usual pre-show anxiety replaced by fierce determination. "Remember," he said quietly, "walk slowly. Let them see every detail. This dress tells a story, and you are its narrator." The final model before me, a striking redhead in an emerald gown, disappeared through the curtains to thunderous applause. Through the sound system, I heard the announcer's voice building anticipation, and now presenting the final look of Luca Valente's spring collection. The curtains parted. The runway stretched before me like a pathway to vindication, lined with fashion's most influential voices, their cameras and opinions ready to reshape the narrative that Sophia had stolen. At the far end, massive screens flickered to life, displaying the first piece of evidence, the original design sketch with my name and measurements clearly visible. I took my first step onto the runway, and the world exploded into light and silence. Camera flashes created a strobe effect, but the venue had fallen unnaturally quiet, as if the audience collectively held its breath. Behind me, the train flowed like liquid mercury, each pearl and crystal catching the light in carefully choreographed brilliance. Halfway down the runway, the screens changed to show the email correspondence between me and Luca, the timestamps clearly visible. A murmur rippled through the audience as people began to understand what they were witnessing. This wasn't just a fashion show, it was a revelation. I reached the end of the runway and paused, allowing the photographers to capture every angle while the screens cycled through bank records, fitting photos, and the original commission agreement. The evidence was overwhelming, undeniable, impossible to dismiss as family drama or creative differences. From my vantage point, I could see Sophia's face clearly. The confident smile had frozen into something brittle and desperate. Her companion, the fashion blogger, was typing furiously on her phone, no doubt live tweeting the unexpected drama. Around the venue, other phones emerged as the audience realized they were witnessing something unprecedented. The screens displayed the final piece of evidence, side-by-side photos of Sophia at the charity gala and me during the original fitting, clearly showing how the dress had been designed for my proportions, not hers. The fashion crowd was sophisticated enough to recognize the technical proof of what they were seeing. I began my return walk, and this time the silence broke. Whispers turned to conversations. Phones captured video, and I caught fragments of commentary. My God, she stole her sister's wedding dress. Look at the documentation. This is incredible. Luca appeared at the runway's end, his face radiant with vindication. He took my hand as I reached him, and together we walked back toward the audience for the traditional designer bow. But this wasn't traditional at all. This was justice, served on a silver platter, truth dressed in silk and pearls. The applause that erupted was unlike anything I'd ever heard. Not just appreciation for fashion, but recognition of something deeper. The sound washed over me like absolution, like years of being invisible finally ending in the most visible way possible. Luca and I took our bow, and I caught one last glimpse of Sophia. She was gathering her purse with shaking hands, her face pale beneath perfectly applied makeup. The woman who had thrived on attention was now desperate to escape it, to flee before the questions and cameras could find her. But it was too late to escape. The truth was out, documented and witnessed by the people whose opinions shaped fashion's narrative. The story would be told correctly now, with my name where it belonged, with credit given to its rightful owner. The applause continued as Luca led me backstage, but I barely heard it over the sound of my own heartbeat. Not nervous anymore, but triumphant. After 30 years of making myself smaller, I had finally taken up the space I deserved. The backstage area erupted into controlled chaos the moment the curtains closed. Fashion journalists pressed forward with recorders extended, their questions overlapping in a cacophony of professional excitement. This wasn't just a fashion story anymore, it was a cultural moment, the kind of dramatic revelation that would generate headlines for weeks. Isabella, can you comment on the documentation shown during the finale? Shouted a reporter from Women's Wear Daily, her camera phone already rolling. Is it true your sister wore your wedding dress without permission? Called another voice from the crowd. Luca stepped protectively beside me, his hand on my arm providing steady support. We'd rehearsed this moment, but the reality of facing the fashion press while still wearing the evidence of my vindication felt surreal. Isabella Cruz, I said clearly, my voice carrying over the noise. And yes, everything you saw on those screens is authentic. The dress Sophia Cruz wore to the Palmer House charity gala last week was designed for me, commissioned by me, and stolen from my apartment without my knowledge or consent. The questions came faster now, reporters sensing the magnitude of the story. How did she gain access to your apartment? When did you discover the theft? What was your family's reaction? I answered each question with the composure I'd never known I possessed, my voice steady despite the adrenaline coursing through my veins. The documentation spoke for itself. Bank records showing my payments to Luca, emails discussing design modifications for my body measurements, sketches with my handwriting in the margins. The evidence was so comprehensive that even the most skeptical journalist couldn't question its authenticity. The most heartbreaking part wasn't just the theft itself, but watching my sister give interviews claiming she'd collaborated on the design. This dress represents months of artistic partnership between Luca and I. To see it reduced to a prop for someone else's photo opportunity was devastating. Luca stepped forward, his Italian accent thick with emotion. Isabella was not just my client, she was my creative partner. Every detail of this gown was born from our conversations about her vision, her wedding, her dreams. To see that stolen and corrupted, it is an attack on the artistic process itself. Through the crowd of reporters, I spotted the fashion blogger who'd been sitting beside Sophia during the show. She was typing furiously on her phone, no doubt crafting the article that would reshape the narrative Sophia had worked so hard to create. My phone buzzed incessantly in my purse, notifications from social media platforms where the story was already spreading. The fashion world moved at internet speed, and the truth was going viral in real time. #WeddingDressGate was trending, with users sharing screenshots of the evidence displayed during the show. Isabella, there are reports that your sister is claiming this was all a misunderstanding. How do you respond to that? The question I'd been dreading finally came, offering Sophia's latest attempt at damage control. The evidence speaks for itself. Bank records don't misunderstand. Email timestamps don't misunderstand. The measurements taken from my body don't misunderstand. What you witnessed tonight was the truth, documented and verified.
A commotion near the backstage entrance caught my attention. Sophia had arrived, flanked by what appeared to be a publicist, and looking decidedly less composed than her usual perfectly curated self. Her face was flushed, her designer clutch gripped so tightly her knuckles showed white. She'd clearly come to attempt damage control, but the overwhelming evidence made any defense seem desperate. "Sophia," reporters called, sensing fresh content, "can you explain how you came to possess your sister's wedding dress?" She approached with the practiced smile that had served her throughout her social climbing, but it looked strained under the harsh backstage lighting. "This is all blown completely out of proportion," she began, her voice carrying that particular tone she used when reality didn't match her preferred narrative. "Isabella and I had discussed sharing the dress. She was busy with wedding planning and couldn't attend the gala herself." The lie was so blatant, so easily contradicted by the evidence we just presented, that several reporters actually laughed. One held up her phone showing the payment records that had been displayed on screen. "Miss Cruz, these payment records show your sister paid for the dress in full. Can you explain your claim of shared ownership?" Sophia's composure cracked visibly. The financial arrangements between family members are private." "What about the measurements?" another reporter pressed. "The dress was clearly tailored for someone shorter than you." "Alterations can be made," Sophia said weakly, but her voice lacked its usual conviction. Luca stepped forward, his protective instincts toward his work overriding any family diplomacy. "Miss Cruz, you called my studio claiming the dress was a surprise gift for your sister. You said she had given you permission to preview it. These were lies?" "Yes." The direct confrontation from the designer himself seemed to shatter Sophia's remaining confidence. She looked around the crowd of reporters, their cameras capturing every moment of her unraveling. And for the first time in our lives, I saw my sister completely out of her depth. "I need to go," she said finally, turning toward the exit with her publicist close behind. "One more question," a reporter called. "Will you be returning the original dress to your sister?" Sophia paused at the backstage exit, her back to the crowd. For a moment, I thought she might offer a genuine apology, some acknowledgement of the pain she'd caused. Instead, she straightened her shoulders and delivered one final performance. "My sister will be fine. She's very resourceful." And then she was gone, leaving behind a crowd of reporters with enough material to fuel fashion journalism for months. The irony wasn't lost on me. Sophia had spent her life courting media attention, and now she was fleeing from it. As the immediate press frenzy died down, Ethan appeared at my side, having fought his way through the crowd. His eyes were bright with pride and something deeper, the relief that the woman he'd chosen to marry had finally stopped hiding her light under other people's shadows. "How do you feel?" he asked quietly as we found a corner of relative privacy backstage. I considered the question seriously. How did I feel? The adrenaline was beginning to fade, replaced by something I'd never experienced before. The profound satisfaction of standing up for myself in the most public way possible. "Visible," I said finally. "For the first time in my life, I feel completely visible." Around us, the fashion show continued its natural conclusion. Models changing out of their final looks, assistants collecting accessories, the controlled dismantling of an artistic moment. But the real show was just beginning. Social media was already exploding with the story, fashion blogs were posting real-time updates, and somewhere in the city, my wedding dress, my actual wedding dress, was waiting to be reclaimed. The truth was out, documented and witnessed. There would be no more family meetings where my reality was dismissed, no more gaslighting about what had really happened. The fashion world had seen the evidence, and their verdict was clear. Sophia had stolen more than a dress. She'd tried to steal my story.
But standing backstage in Luca's masterpiece, surrounded by reporters who finally knew the truth, I realized something powerful. You can't steal someone's story if they're brave enough to tell it themselves. The suite at the Drake Hotel had become an impromptu war room, room service trays competing for space with laptops displaying real-time social media feeds. 24 hours after the fashion show, the story had taken on its own life, spreading far beyond fashion circles into mainstream media. My phone hadn't stopped buzzing since we'd returned from the venue, each notification bringing news of another outlet picking up the story. "Listen to this," Ethan said, reading from his tablet. "The Cut just published a think piece called When Family Theft Becomes Fashion Crime, the Isabella Cruz story, and Harper's Bazaar wants to do a full feature on ethical fashion and family dynamics." I looked up from my laptop where I had been responding to interview requests with methodical precision. The response had been overwhelming. Not just from fashion media, but from women sharing their own stories of family members who had appropriated their achievements, their belongings, their very identities.
People are calling it bigger than fashion, I said, scrolling through the comments on various articles. Look at these responses. Women talking about sisters who stole boyfriends, mothers who took credit for their work, family members who diminished their accomplishments. I think we accidentally tapped into something universal. The irony wasn't lost on me. Sophia had always been the one who understood how to manipulate narrative, how to position herself at the center of attention. But this time, her theft had backfired spectacularly, creating a story that was spiraling beyond her control. Luca arrived with coffee and an armload of newspapers, his usually immaculate appearance slightly disheveled from a sleepless night of interviews. "Mia cara, you have broken the internet," he announced dramatically, spreading publications across the coffee table. "Look, page 6, the Tribune fashion section, even the Times has a piece about family dynamics and personal boundaries." The coverage was staggering. Fashion publications praised the documentary evidence and the dramatic reveal, while mainstream outlets focused on the family betrayal angle. Social media had turned Sophia into a cautionary tale about entitlement and theft, with memes comparing her to various fictional villains. My phone rang. My parents' house number appeared on the screen for the 5th time that morning. I had been letting their calls go to voicemail, not ready for the inevitable pressure to make peace and think about family unity. "You should probably talk to them eventually," Ethan said, noticing my hesitation. "I know, I'm just not ready for them to tell me I've embarrassed the family by refusing to stay quiet about being robbed." Luca looked up from his own phone, where he'd been monitoring fashion industry reaction. "Speaking of your sister, she has hired a crisis management firm. They released a statement an hour ago." He handed me his phone, displaying a carefully worded press release that was pure Sophia, acknowledging misunderstandings while taking no real responsibility. The statement claimed she'd acted out of love for fashion and respect for Luca's artistry, painting herself as an overzealous fan rather than a calculating thief. "She's trying to spin this as passion for art," I said, reading the statement aloud. "Miss Cruz's appreciation for exceptional design led to an unfortunate miscommunication with her sister." Miscommunication. She's calling theft a miscommunication. "The fashion world is not buying it," Luca assured me. "The evidence was too clear, too comprehensive. She cannot word salad her way out of bank records and measurement charts." A knock at the door interrupted our media monitoring session. Ethan answered to find a hotel employee with an enormous floral arrangement. White orchids and roses and a crystal vase that probably cost more than my monthly grocery budget. The card was from Sophia, the handwriting instantly recognizable despite its careful formality. "Isabella, I hope we can move past this unfortunate situation. Family is forever. Love, S." The casual dismissal contained in those few lines was breathtaking. An unfortunate situation, as if my wedding dress had somehow accidentally materialized on her body, as if the theft, lies, and public humiliation had been acts of nature rather than deliberate choices. "She still doesn't get it,"
I said, setting the card aside. Even now, she's treating this like a minor family spat that I'm overreacting to. Ethan's laptop chimed with a new email notification. Isabella, you need to see this, he said, his voice strange. It's from the Palmer House. They want to issue a formal apology for featuring Sophia in their charity gala publicity materials and ask if you'd be interested in being their featured guest at next year's event. The request felt surreal. 24 hours ago, I'd been invisible, overlooked, the sister who cleaned up messes rather than making headlines. Now, major venues recording my attention, fashion magazines wanted my story, and social media was treating me as a symbol of standing up for yourself. My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. Saw the coverage. The evidence was damning. Hope you get your dress back. Your sister made a mistake fucking with the wrong woman, and a fashion journalist who believes in justice. Messages like that had been arriving steadily. Support from strangers who'd followed the story and felt invested in the outcome. The response suggested this had touched something deeper than fashion or family drama. It had become a story about power, about speaking truth, about refusing to be diminished. What's our next move? I asked, looking around the room at the evidence of how completely our lives had changed in 24 hours.
Luca leaned forward, his expression serious. Now we wait for your sister to return what she stole. The court of public opinion has delivered its verdict. She cannot keep the dress now. It would be social suicide. As if summoned by our conversation, my phone rang with Sophia's number. I looked at it for a long moment, this call representing the first direct contact since the fashion show revelation. Ethan and Luca watched expectantly as I made the decision to answer. Hello, Sophia. Isabella. Her voice was smaller than I'd ever heard it, stripped of its usual commanding confidence. We need to talk. Yes, I agreed. We do. The conversation that would finally determine the fate of my wedding dress and possibly our relationship was about to begin. Outside the hotel windows, Chicago gleamed in the afternoon sun, and I realized I was no longer the same woman who'd discovered her dress missing just a week ago. That Isabella had been devastated by theft. This Isabella was ready for whatever came next. The coffee shop Sophia chose was deliberately neutral, a quiet place on the north side where neither of us was likely to be recognized, where the aftermath of our very public confrontation couldn't follow us. She was already seated when I arrived, hunched over a barely touched latte, her usually perfect posture deflated in a way I'd never seen before. For the first time in our lives, Sophia looked smaller than me. She'd chosen a corner table, her back to the wall, as if protecting herself from further exposure. The confident woman who'd strutted down red carpets just days ago had been replaced by someone fragile, uncertain. Her makeup was flawless, as always, but couldn't quite hide the exhaustion around her eyes. "Thank you for coming," she said as I sat down, her voice barely above a whisper. I ordered coffee from the hovering barista, using the few moments to study my sister's face. The fashion show revelation had stripped away more than just her lies. It had peeled back layers of armor I hadn't realized she'd been wearing our entire lives. "The dress is in my car," she said, without preamble. "Cleaned, unaltered, exactly as you left it." Relief flooded through me so completely that I had to grip the edge of the table. My wedding dress, my actual wedding dress, was finally coming home. In 5 days, I would walk down the aisle wearing the gown I'd designed, as I'd always planned. "Thank you," I said simply. Sophia's laugh was bitter, self-directed. "Don't thank me for returning something I stole. That's not how gratitude works." The admission hung between us, the first time she'd acknowledged the theft without euphemisms or justifications. No misunderstandings or miscommunications, just the raw truth of what she'd done. "Isabella, I need you to know something.
She looked up, meeting my eyes directly, for the first time since I had arrived. "I've been jealous of you my entire life." The words hit me like a physical blow. Jealous? Sophia, who had been the golden child, the center of attention, the one who'd always gotten everything she wanted? "That's impossible," I said automatically. "Is it? You think I didn't notice how effortlessly you excelled at everything? How did you graduate summa cum laude while I barely passed? How did you build a career through actual talent while I've been coasting on charm and connections?" I stared at her, processing this completely upside-down version of our family dynamics. I'd spent 30 years believing I was the overlooked sister, the one who had to work twice as hard for half the recognition. "When I saw your dress, it represented everything I couldn't create myself. The artistic partnership with Luca, the genuine beauty of something made with love and intention. I told myself I deserved it more because I'd know how to showcase it properly." She paused, her voice growing smaller. "But really, I just wanted to feel what it was like to be you for one night." The honesty was devastating in its completeness. I'd expected defensiveness, manipulation, the usual Sophia tactics. Instead, she was offering something I'd never seen from her before: genuine vulnerability. "I used my dress to act out. It was childish and weak and heartless." "You destroyed my trust," I said finally, needing her to understand the scope of the damage. Not just by taking the dress, but by lying about it, by letting me believe I was crazy for being upset.
Up next, you've got 2 more standout stories right on your screen. If this one hit the mark, you won't want to pass these up. Just click and check them out. And don't forget to subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss any upload from us.